Once again, we are facing the possibility of a government shutdown. This time it might be because the president and congressional Democrats are at odds over what to do about DACA, the program that protects young people brought to the country illegally as children. On Sunday, the president said that a deal on DACA was dead and blamed Democrats for stalling new legislation. This comes after reports that Mr. Trump said some immigrants who wished to come to the U.S. were coming from expletive-hole countries. CBS News White House and senior foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan is at the White House. So, Margaret, what do the president's recent tweets and statements say about his confidence in getting a DACA deal passed and his willingness to work with lawmakers?
Well, the president seems to be wanting to send the message that he's in charge and that any complications at this point aren't his fault, despite that blow-up coming out of that Oval Office meeting last Thursday. That's when Senator Dick Durbin, remember, accused the president of using an expletive to refer to countries including El Salvador, Haiti, and African nations, something that Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican, seemed to support, though other Republicans present denied that any such thing happened. The president's trying to make clear that he doesn't think it's his fault if anything goes south. In fact, he's blaming Democrats here. He has said repeatedly over the past few days that a deal is within reach on DACA. He's ready, willing to make it, but that Democrats don't really want to go through with it. Of course, that may be a nod to the fact that, as senior GOP sources are telling me, they suspect Democrats would like to see a government shutdown on Friday. Remember, funding runs out at midnight that day. It also coincides with the first anniversary of President Trump's year in office. So there's a little bit of a blame game going on there. Democrats really say they're just trying to use the leverage they have facing that deadline in order to get DACA through now, rather than kicking the can down the road when they might have more difficulty.
Well, is the White House concerned that the president's alleged use of disparaging words in reference to immigrants from Africa and Haiti will impact getting new legislation approved by Friday?
Well, the firestorm has certainly complicated things. It's lent a level of toxicity, but as the president himself has been trying to do, he seems to have, and trying to emphasize here, that he does have some allies on Capitol Hill. You can hear the motors here. That the Marine One just touched down at the White House. The president is back here, and tomorrow he has to convince those on Capitol Hill to work with him to get that funding bill done in the next 4 days. He really doesn't have much time here, so he's relying on Senate Republicans like Tom Cotton, who was at the immigration meeting, and others to sort of take his side and play off those disparaging remarks as just a matter of partisan politics and perhaps slander against him, rather than what others in the room have said were in fact statements that had to do with the specifics of how they would craft any kind of future immigration bill. So perhaps you could, guess this at this point, but he's just flat out denying it.
Well, so how likely is it? I mean, you mentioned Democrats a moment ago. How likely is it that failing to pass an immigration deal will lead to a shutdown?
Well, there's actually a few bites at this apple in some ways, in that comprehensive immigration reform that the president said he wanted, some of the specific immigration things he wants, including diversity visa programs, border wall funding, all those things, those don't all have to necessarily get done by this Friday. There is time to have that done in a new comprehensive bill. That's what Democrats say. Some of the president's allies here don't want to agree to give Democrats what they want to see on DACA, though. That is those 700,000 or so undocumented people who were brought into the country as children. They don't want to give away DACA without getting something back. And so they want to get that funding for the border wall and funding for other things that the president has prioritized as security measures. So they want this to be some kind of quid pro quo, specifically on immigration. So this is one of the thorniest issues that's complicating getting that spending bill through. But senior Republican sources keep emphasizing that they think they can get something done by Friday, because they are also keenly aware that they don't want to start the second year, end the celebration of Trump's inauguration, the one-year mark, with a government shutdown. That just doesn't look good. So they're already saying they can get agreement on some of the bigger issues on spending, and perhaps DACA is something that they're going to have to continue to argue about. But remember, this whole argument that's playing out in the public after last Thursday's Oval Office meeting, when that expletive was allegedly used, is complicating something that shouldn't be that complicated when you consider that there is actually bipartisan support for DACA. Not all the other immigration things, but on DACA specifically. And in fact, the latest CBS News poll shows that 70% of Americans support it, including a slim majority of President Trump's own supporters. So this is one part of immigration that both sides say they actually do agree with. It's just that their representatives on Capitol Hill aren't agreeing on it right now. So we'll have to see what happens by Friday.
Some critically important context as we watch that debate continue to unfold in Washington. Margaret Brennan, thank you so much.